So now moving on to the larger bell flower. So for Lily of the Valley that I've just shown in the previous segment, I've used the smaller cavity. Here I'm moving on to the larger cavity, and I'm going to show you two variations on using this. One is the Hyacinth, which is a popular spring flower, very fragrant, and the second is Bluebell, which again, especially in Europe, is a very popular flower during the springtime. But this can also be used for other bell-shaped flowers like small campanulas. There's many flowers that have this bell, harebells, for example. So there's many variations you can make with this mold. First of all, I'm going to show you the buds. So for the buds, I'm actually preparing the wires exactly the same as the previous segment on Lily of the Valley. So this is at this time a 28 gauge wire instead of a 30, but just covered with quarter width floral tape and then cut into 6 sections. So 28 gauge covered wire cut into 6, and then, as I said, a little hook on the end of them. Now when we make the hyacinth buds, we're going to be making the smaller buds number 4 size. So this will just be a regular number 4 size, so using your size guide. And here I'm going to show you in a sort of lavender color, but you see 1/3 below, 2/3 above using the size guide. So this is number 4 size. And when we make hyacinths, obviously hyacinths come in many colors, in pink, in lavender, in white, in yellow. So again, very versatile flower. Just going to put a little bit of vegetable shortening into this. And then all I'm going to do here is going to brush a little bit of egg white onto my hook of my 28 gauge wire here. And then just going to push this into the ball of paste. So going to push this into the ball of paste. Just going to use a little cornstarch, just molding around the bottom. And I'm going to make this into a sausage shape with a slight pointed end, so a little bit like a cigar shape. Alright, so this one to be about 10, the main part of it, about 10 millimeters. And then we're going to use again, very similar to the way I did the Lily of the Valley bud, but here I'm going to use my needle tool, divide it into 3. So again, I'm just going to mark the top 1, going to mark the top 2, going to mark the top 3. So just like we did Lily of the Valley in the previous segment, but then we're going to go back in now and just going to do a 4th line, a 5th line, and a 6th line. So you're just going to go do 3 and then you go in another 3. So you're just going to get these lines coming down the side of the bud. And the lines want to come about halfway down. Okay, so if you can just extend your line down with your needle tool here, about halfway down. And that will make the smaller hyacinth bud. The larger hyacinth bud will be made in the same way. The only difference, this is going to be made with a number 5 size ball of paste. And then this one wants to be about 15 millimeters long. So you can see this one is just a little bit longer. This is about 15 millimeters, which is actually about 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so you can see this is the sort of 2 sizes of the hyacinth bud. So number 4, 10 millimeters long. Number 5, 15 millimeters long. So for making the hyacinth flower, we're going to be using the large cavity. First, we need to make a small floral tape bud. We're going to take some quarter width floral tape. This is a 28 gauge wire. This is actually 3rd length wire. And I'm just going to go around 3 times. So you're going to go around the end of the wire. Use a little cornstarch on your finger. So 1, 2, 3. And you're going to hook this over. So you're going to make a little tiny hook on the end of this. And then 1, 2, 3. So you're going to just make this almost like little Q-tip cotton bud on the end of the wire. This is just really because of the shape of the flower. It just is a little bit longer and larger as well. This almost, think of a bell. This is going to stop the bell falling off the end of the wire. So anyway, you'd make as many of those little floral tape buds as you needed for your flowers. So very similar to the way we made the Lily of the Valley in the previous segment, I'm going to use color of choice. So it's going to be in number 7 size. So again, just regular number 7 size, so 1/3 below, 2/3 above. And then here, again, I'm just going to condition the paste. And then once you've conditioned your paste, I'm going to just roll this into a little sausage shape. And again, you're just going to push this into the mold. Just going to flatten this down. And again, just like before, just going to press this in. Again, just going to use my ball tool there just to make sure that holds that in place. Okay, and then we're going to use your knife, or you can use your little blue scraper. So So you see how I'm using this sawing action. Just make sure your knife is nice and clean. So you see how that will just cut off the excess paste, okay? I'm gonna flex your mold here. Just gonna pop this out. So it just takes a second just to sort of obviously just remove this from the mold because this is a little bit deeper. And as I said, once you can see it's removed, you can actually just use your little needle tool just to pop that out, okay? I'm gonna use just a little cornstarch on my balling tool here. So just like we did on the Lily of the Valley, I'm going to now just sort of press this in, but going in fairly deep. This is a little bit of a deeper flower, so you're going to go in a little bit deeper because we have thicker paste here. All right, so you see how you're going to create this bell shape. And then either on your finger, you're going to use the veining tool. You're going to make like a little tiny line on your finger like this. Or alternatively, you can do that onto the soft side of the pad. So you can just use the needle tool. Just press this onto, so you see what I'm actually doing is I'm making this characteristic shape. And then you're almost going to pinch that to a slight point because our hyacinth petals are a little bit pointed. So you're just going to actually just pinch those to a slight little point, okay? I'm going to put a little bit of egg white just around the base. You only need to put this around the base. So just like on my Stephanotis segment from the Ultimate Filler Flowers, because that's the point of contact at the bottom there. I'm going to thread this down through the bottom of the flower. So this will come through the bottom of the flower so the little floral tape bud will sit into that cavity. We're now going to just take a little tiny ball of paste, just a small little tiny ball, you know, round about number 1 size, and that's just going to be dropped into the middle here. Just going to drop that in the middle of the flower, and then using your balling tool, again, you see how you're just going to impact this into the top here. This is just a technique that I found works very well because sometimes when you're making bell-shaped flowers, they're not really secure on the wire. So putting that little extra ball of paste makes a big difference. Also, just using the needle tool, just going to make a little tiny hole in the middle. These are fine, sort of like silk stamens, yellow silk stamens. Just small ones. You could use slightly bigger ones like I used on Lily of the Valley. But just small stamens, and I'm going to take these, going to cut them pretty short, and I'm going to use 3 of these little stamens into the middle. Now alternatively, another way you could do this would be to take a royal icing. So with some royal icing, you could take some royal icing and put some royal icing into like a number 1 piping tip, a tube, and just do like 3 little dots of royal icing. You're just going to just put these little stamens into the middle. So you have the 3 little stamens into the center. And then again, little cornstarch, think of a crab or a lobster. You're just going to just close that up slightly, and that will give you your sort of characteristic shape of your hyacinth flower, okay? So now we're going to move on to the coloring. So for the hyacinth, so first of all, I've already assembled this. When we assemble it, we're going to think of the way a hyacinth grows. Alternatively, of course, hyacinths could be put together in little small groupings, because this is really more like the head of the hyacinth grows, but you could just do a little group of, say, 2 buds and 3 or 4 flowers and integrate these in amongst roses or other flowers. What I've done here is I've actually added a 20 gauge wire, which is a stronger wire, basically at the top here. So I did 1 bud and then I had 3 buds. And then I just took a 20 gauge wire where my little finger is here, and then just sort of, and you just go round and round like a Christmas tree. And as you can see, as you come down, you're going to have a little bit more of exposed wire on the actual flowers. Now, alternatively, if you feel more comfortable dusting the flowers independently, individually, and the buds, and then of course putting them together once you've got them colored. When you're doing a flower like this, it's fairly easy because you can just, then once you get it done, you can just open up the flower to access the areas of it. So you're just going to just sort of open up your, so we'll start off with the buds at the top here. So I'm just using my tweezers here and just going to open these out because these are on 28 gauge wires. Now I'm going to use here a combination of a little bit of pink and about the same amount of the purple here. So I'm going to just actually use to make a sort of a lavender color. This just also shows you, you know, you don't always have to have every single color dust. You can just be fairly creative in just using your colors that you have. So I'm going to use this color, and this is really going to go onto the buds, I'm going to come about 3/4 of the way down the buds with this. So I'm leaving the bottom of the buds the original color. Because when we then put the green on, we're putting the green on to the original paste, not on top of the lavender powder, which often mean you won't see the green. And then we're also going to use this color just to dust into the middle of the flower. And again, coming about 2/3 of the way down the flowers as well. So you're just going to sort of do the centers of the flowers, and you're just going to come about 2/3 of the way down. I'm then going to add a little accent color, so then I'm going to use just the straight purple. So this is going to be sort of like the straight purple here, and I'm just going to put just a little touch of this, just like on the very, very tip of the bud, and then just going to brush that just gently around the edge of the petals. So that you're just going to get, once this is steamed, you're going to get this just slightly darker color on the edge. And this is some apple green color, so a little bit of apple green. Remember, if you only have, for example, like more of a mossy green color, you can also, remember, add a little bit of yellow to your moss, and that will give you more of a sort of brighter green. So then we're going to see the bottom third is then going to be brushed with this appley green. See, by doing this, you're going to get a nice integration of color, and so your powder is coming down about 2/3 of the lavender, the darker purple just on the tip, and then the green is coming from the bottom up. And then that way you will get a much nicer color. Because if you dusted the purple all the way over, then you really won't see the green. Most flowers I steam, so we're just going to lightly steam this in a tea kettle or a clothes steamer or a sugarcraft steamer, and that will then set the color. So for making the bluebell, this is a beautiful spring flower. The only difference here between this and the hyacinth is the buds are made in the same size, so you use number 4 and number 5, but you make the number 4 is going to be made 15 millimeters long, and then the number 5 will be made 20 millimeters. So it's just a longer, skinnier version, a little bit more pointed and marked into 6. Now for the flowers of the bluebell, this is partly finished, this one. I'm going to show you the coloring in a second. When you make the flower, you do exactly the same as the hyacinth, which I've just shown in the previous segment, except I'm using blue here. This is the Renshaw blue gum paste or flower modeling paste. And so what I've done there, exactly the same as for the hyacinth. All right, I've veined it, I've hollowed out the inside. And then the only difference is here now, you're going to take your small balling tool, and on the back of the petal, on the hat side, you're going to just cup it. So you're just going to actually cup it on the back sides, because to see the little bell actually cups back on itself. So you're just going to actually just cup this. So just like I did the inside of the lily of the valley, these petals will just actually cup back. And this gives you the characteristic of the bluebell. When you pull the center in, this is going to give you the longer back like I showed on the hyacinth. But that is how we will do the bluebell. So you can see between the hyacinth flower and the bluebell flower, obviously the hyacinth is closed up. This is more like a harebell and some of the campanula family, whereas the bluebell, the actual petals are curled back a little bit. The bluebell is going to be done with using here a color like a cool marine blue. So this is sort of like not quite as bright as the periwinkle I did on the hydrangea. So with this, I'm going to take some of the blue, and I'm going to use the blue here. Now this is assembled exactly the same way as the lily of the valley, in that you sort of start off by just open it out. It's a little bit easier to sort of see the structure of this, but this will be very much like oats and things like that. So you see, like the lily of the valley, I started off with the first one, but I'm coming down about 2.5 centimeters, and then I have about 1 centimeter, about 1/2 inch of stem coming out to the right, whereas lily of the valley was much more compact. All right, and then what it is, once I get all the buds in here, at this point here, when you've got your however many buds you're going to put in, I've added a 22 gauge wire at this point here, okay? When we do the bluebell, we're going to use this blue color over the surface. So we're just going to again come down about 2/3 of the way down on the bluebell here. And then again on the flowers, you will do, which I've done most of this, you're going to just do the bluebell, the blue color here, and just on the back of the flower coming down about 2/3 of the way down. It doesn't have to be a totally solid color, because remember, this flower is also made in a blue color. Then we're going to add a little bit of a darker color. This is called deep purple. So I'm going to use some of this So this is a sort of almost like a bluey purple color. So I'm going to use a little bit of this. It's going to be then just dusted onto the tips of the blue. And this is going to give you this really beautiful sort of bluey purple color, which the Bluebell has. I'm going to use the same green. So I'm going to put a little bit of green just around the base. This one I've done most of the coloring on it, so because it's very similar to the... And again, you can see here, this is the original blue, the pale blue, but then when you put the green on the top here, this is going to just give you this nice color onto the buds. And then also in this one, I'm going to just take my green and just going to put just a little touch of green just right in the middle. So just using my apple green here into the middle. And then this is going to be steamed. And again, when we steam this is going to give you this nice, as I said, natural color. And when we're using dark colors like this dark purple color, the steaming will really, as I said, sort of help to sort of give this much more muted color, and will obviously also intensify the darker colors on the Bluebell as well. So these have all been created in these two components and parts of my Ultimate Filler Flower mold from my Flower Pro line. As I explained in the segment, there are many options there for using this mold for other flowers like harebells, campanula, and bell-shaped flowers. So I hope you will enjoy using this part of the mold and all the parts of my Ultimate Filler Flower mold from my Flower Pro line. This has been Nicholas Lodge. I look forward to seeing you real soon.